All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at these problems. Problem 1 says find all intercepts. So we're talking x and y. So if I go ahead and plug in a 0 everywhere that there's an x, and do my order of operations, I am going to get 7/4. So that means I have a coordinate at 0, 7/4. All right, now the other one, we're going to go ahead and put a 0 in for y. And then let's talk about this for a second. In order for a fraction to actually equal the answer of 0, our denominator makes no difference. I mean, I could go through and some of you asked me in class, do I cross multiply? And I said, sure, go ahead. But again, it doesn't matter. So we're looking at this problem right now. And so go ahead and solve it, and you will get -7/3. And so then go ahead and write it as the coordinate. So there are your two intercepts. And you don't have to label, hey, this is the x and this is y. Just write them both down. All right, number 2 says find all points of intersection. And because this is a non-calculator, let's go ahead and take a look at this. So if we rewrite each of these for slope-intercept, or not really slope-intercept, just y equals, we'll have this. Rewrite this one. And then what we want to do is we want to set these two equal to each other. We want to get everything on the same side, but if we do bring everything over here to the left, we would eventually have to get rid of that negative before we factor. So I'm just going to move everything over there. And we're going to go ahead and factor. And we're going to solve. But now be careful because these are not intercepts. These are the x values of both your intersecting points. So we know that they're going to intersect somewhere at -3 and somewhere at 1, but we have to figure out the corresponding y values. So plug a 1 in and plug a -3 in wherever you want to. So maybe this one would just be easier. So 2 times -3 is -6, minus 1 would be -7. Plug a 1 in there. So 2 times 1 is 2, 2 minus 1 is 1. All right, so remember that when we go to graph piecewise functions, we want to look at each piece separately. So let's look at the first piece. And when I go to make my little chart here, this is telling me that I want to go all values less than -1. But I don't want to start at -2 because then you're missing all the values between -1 and -2. So even though it doesn't have a little equals to, we're going to start with this restriction point, -1, and then we're going to pick ones less than that. And make as many points as you want. I mean, who knows if I'm going to use all of these. But we're going to go ahead and plug -1 in there. So that's going to be -4 plus 2. That's going to be -8 plus 2. Go ahead and plug that in there. Notice it's getting bigger and bigger. I'm probably not going to do these. Now because of that right there, it's going to be an open circle at that first beginning point. Now let's look at the second piece. Notice that this is going to be a parabola, vertex at -3, but we're only asking in between -1 and 1. So this boundary right here is showing me that we're going to be a closed circle and this one's going to be open. And go ahead and plug -1 in there. That's 1 minus 3. It's -3, 1 minus 3. And now the third piece is telling me to use 1 and then go bigger. And because they want me to use 1 exactly, it's going to be a closed circle right there. Plug 1 in there, and then plug 2, plug 3 in. All right, so let's go ahead and look at our graph here. All right, so at 1, 3, closed circle, and then at 2, 0, and 3, -3. Which if you think about this, if I really would have started up here at 6 and went with a slope of -3, it would have been all the way going down this way. Start with your initial point and go towards the other points. Goes on forever in this direction. All right, now we're going to do the middle piece. So at -1, -2, close point. At 0, -3. And then at 1, -2, there's an open point. But I only want to see that parabola in between those. Looks kind of weird, doesn't it? And the reason we can't have a closed point here and a closed point here because it wouldn't pass the vertical line test. So in any vertical line here, we can't have 2 points. Open circle at -1, -2, which is already a closed. So how do I do an open circle if there's already a closed circle? The closed circle overtakes the open circle. So it's going to end up being a closed circle anyways. Okay, -2, -6. And then -3, -10. And remember that this here is going to be a straight line. It's linear. So now look at that weird graph. This is called a piecewise function because it's in pieces. And sometimes the pieces are connected and sometimes they're not. It just depends. We've got a linear line here, positive slope. We have part of a parabola. And then we have a linear line here with a negative slope. So this would be considered my entire piecewise graph. Now it says evaluate f of -4. Well, there's actually 2 ways you can evaluate it. One is to actually look at the graph and see if you can find the answer. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I can't really see it, right? So if you have a really accurate graph and you can actually see the point, just do that. Find that coordinate. Otherwise, what we want to do, and which is what you probably did in your assignment, is you want to figure out which piece does this belong to. So look at the 3 pieces, the restriction. Okay, where does -4 fall into? Is -4 less than -1? Is -4 between -1 and 1? Or is it bigger? Okay, so it falls under the first piece, which means we don't care about these at all. And we also don't care about the restriction after we figure out which one to use. So all we care about is the actual function itself. We care about f of x equals 4x plus 2. So now what we're going to do is we're going to plug in -4 wherever there's an x. So we're going to get -16 plus 2, so we're going to say that f of -4 is actually equal to -14. Evaluate it means just find the y value at that x value. Alright, it says determine the slope. So the slope is going to be the opposite of this over this. So it's going to be +3/7. It asks for the y-intercept. Our letter for y-intercept is b, which is this number divided by this number. And they want us to sketch a graph. So we're going to go ahead and get to -11/7. And -11/7 is -1 4/7. So -1 4/7 is about here. So now I need to move the slope of 3/7. So I'm going to go up 3. So that'd be 1, 2, 3 over 7. Don't forget to sketch your line on the quiz. If the point -1, 5 lies on the graph of this equation, find k. All right, so we're going to plug this in for x and this in for y. And we're going to solve. So we get 5 equals, all of this is just 1. This is still 1 times -k. And so you can go ahead and solve it, or you can actually look at it right now and tell me what it's going to be. If you want to go through and finish solving it, here's every step along the way. Find an equation of a line that goes to the point -4, 2 and is parallel to this line. First of all, I'm going to rewrite the standard form make that 7 on the other side. So the slope from this, some of you can get the slope right now by looking at it. Some of you might have to rewrite it in slope-intercept. But we're going to use this. It's the opposite of this number divided by this number. So my slope is -3/2. Because we're asking parallel, I'm going to use the same slope. So some of you are going to do it this way. Your y value is 2, your m is -3/2, your x is -4 plus b. You're going to go ahead and multiply these, and that's going to give you +6 plus b. And then you're going to start solving for b. And you'll get b to be -4. And then you'll go ahead and write the equation out, your slope, and then your x next to it, and then your b. Some of you are going to choose to go a different route. Doesn't matter, whatever you want. Y minus, the y coordinate of my point was 2. My slope was this. And then x minus, my x coordinate was -4, so that makes this a plus. And I'm going to go ahead and distribute. And then one last thing, I just need to get rid of minusing 2, so I'm going to add 2 over here. Notice you'll get the same answer. It's whatever you're used to, not a big deal if you remember one way versus the other. Both of these were taught to you in previous classes. This is the one that you're going to want to pay close attention to. This is the one that a couple people usually struggle with. So here's the function, and this is the verb. So this is what they want you to do. So I'm going to take the shell of my equation, which is something to the third, minus 5 times that something plus 8. And I need to plug this into this empty spots here. Then you need to minus whatever f of 2 is. Well, f of 2 means you're going to plug a 2 in. So let's do that right now. 2 to the third is 8. -5 times 2 is -10 plus 8. That will give me 6. So I'm going to minus 6 when I get done doing all this. So let's go ahead and expand that. That is Pascal's triangle. So we go x squared, x cubed, x squared, x times 2 times 2 squared and times 2 cubed. So we'll get x to the third plus, if we multiply those together, plus, and now we want to do this first and then times that. 2 cubed is 8. Okay, so everything we've done so far is this section of this. So now we still have to distribute here. We need to just carry that down. And then at the very end it says minus f of 2. Remember, if you remember that minus f of 2 is this minus 6. So we'll go ahead and simplify. And then 8 and 8 is 16. 16 minus 6 is 10. And a -10. Those will just all cancel out. Determine whether the function is even, odd, or neither. Okay, let's talk about that. Even means it's symmetric to the y-axis. So you switch your x. If it is odd, it is symmetric to the origin, which means that you switch your x and your y. Well, take a look at it. What do you think it is? All right, so let's take a look at this. Most people said that in class they'd start with even. So then this is really like just like your y. So if I replace my x with negative x, this become negative x cubed, and this become positive x, 7x. Now look at this and look at your original. Are they identical? No. So it's definitely not an even. So let's try the odd now. So the odd, we replace both of them. So let's take a look at this. And again, we said just a second ago that becomes negative x cubed and a positive 7x. There's a negative in front of that, so really you got to divide everything by a -1. which creates this equation. So look at that, and then look at the original up here. Do these match? Yes. So then the direction says explain your answer. Well, what did you do? Okay, so now you have to write out in English that this function is odd because when you replace x with negative x and y with negative y, your final answer matches the original problem.